Are you interested in the military? Keep watching to find out more detailed information.
I feel like I'm most passionate about letting people know what's possible for them, helping people overcome any obstacle that might be in their way of their pursuit of happiness. I decided to enlist in the Air Force because I was ready for an adventure, to travel the world and do something that people would have a great story to tell about later on. So I spent 4 years in North Dakota, guarding missile sites. I enjoyed putting on the uniform and what it stood for, what it represented. It was probably one of the best times of my life because everyone was really supportive. I never realized people so different from me would actually become my closest friends, and everyone was from different states, different ethnicities, different upbringing, socioeconomic classes. The people who were probably really influential who were in the healthcare career field, they really enjoyed working with people. That was something I also enjoyed doing. It wasn't until I went home on leave and I was in an aircraft, and I remember hearing a frantic voice of a flight attendant asking if there was a doctor on board, and she sounded really scared and really panicked. And this woman stood up and she said, "Well, I'm not a doctor, but I'm a nurse. I can go over and check him out." Everyone was just so relieved. It wasn't until that moment that I saw myself in a similar position of responding to someone who was in that sort of crisis. I knew immediately that that was the direction I wanted to go to. And I decided that being a nurse was going to be the next step that I wanted to take. I had my mind set on going to school, becoming a nurse, and closing the chapter in the military and just really being appreciative of the experience. One of the things that you have to do when you get out of the Air Force, out of active duty at least, is you have to talk to a reserve recruiter. That's actually part of your checklist. I sat down, I was ready to say no. He said, "Well, you can actually have both. Like, you can still go to school and still be in the military. And one of the positions that's available that you can go into is bioenvironmental engineering." And that really piqued my interest.
I told him, I said, "You like it, don't give it up. I mean, we just try to talk to somebody that can give you time or go to school, and I think they can work for you. If he can help the other people, I don't see why he want to give it up."
One thing I never really considered was how a person's working environment can affect their health. I was excited that this job would give me that perspective. I thought that it was going to be a good opportunity to round out my education, so I went with it. I went back to the recruiter and I said, "I'm all in." And armed with my wonderful GI Bill, I applied to the best schools and I got into Yale, and I decided that this was going to be the next adventure in my life. I am a staff sergeant in the United States Air Force Reserve, and I am a bioenvironmental engineering technician. Our main responsibility is to ensure that all personnel that work in shops are working in an environment that's safe and that they are working with the proper protective equipment and policies in place from any hazards that might be in their workplace. And that can include noise levels, that can include radiation, the quality of the water that's on the base, just to name a few. These are also factors that can play an important role whether or not someone is well. And it's given me the knowledge to be able to investigate deeper when it comes to learning how to diagnose an illness or learning how I'm going to treat a certain ailment. So it's given me a perspective to look at things in a different way that I might not have considered before.
He's thinking about his future on the reserve because he's thinking about all the benefits that he got from the Air Force.
Being in the reserves, it's the best of both worlds. So you can live a full and happy and productive civilian life and still also have this side of you going on the weekends and put on a uniform, sort of like a superhero. Every once in a while it catches me off guard that there's some really cool things that I get to do, and I don't feel like I have to compromise my personal goals in order to have this experience in the military that I enjoy having in my life. I gain an appreciation over time as far as the sacrifices that service members have to make. And if I can somehow help them in some capacity, then that makes me happy on so many levels. I think that's pretty much the passion that drives me to do the things that I do.
I've pretty much been taking things apart as long as I can remember. I was always interested in science and technology, and I found pursuits that linked up well with that. I think looking back, the path to where I am today is very clear. Finding the challenges that fit with who I am and what I valued and what I was skilled at. I think it all makes sense. I'm exactly where I need to be. In high school, I always sort of picked my schedule more around all the advanced science courses. I did programming. I did some robotics things that my high school offered. With robotics, math is a way to describe the way that everything moves and interacts, and for me that was fascinating. And sort of sparked that interest that, led me down this very long path to bring me to where I am today. I found out about the service academies, particularly the Naval Academy, and I think I saw the challenge of it, and that's what really appealed to me. I got rejected from the Naval Academy the first time that I applied. I remember people saying that normal kids from high school can't just go to a service academy, and I decided that I needed to prove them wrong.
Alex doesn't choose the easy way. He doesn't shy away from challenges. His parents are both really hardworking people. They have a very strong work ethic. I think that definitely shows in Alex.
I think getting that rejection really focused me and really showed me that maybe what I was doing up until that point and the effort that I've been putting in wasn't sufficient. So I spent a year at Oregon State. I worked very, very hard there. I focused every day on doing the best that I could so that I could put in a stronger application in the Naval Academy. And they recognized that, and I got in the second time around. The excitement of graduation is definitely a moment that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. There was literally just a buzz in the air, and people were just agitated in their seats, just waiting to throw their hats in the air and to be commissioned as second lieutenants in the Marine Corps and ensigns in the Navy. It was incredibly exciting and incredibly rewarding to know that 4 years of very hard work had paid off. When you're younger, the need to overcome challenges has a lot to do with proving something to yourself. And as you get older, in particular as you get into leadership roles as a naval officer, it has a lot more to do with not letting your guys down.
I can still remember mornings in dive school. Sometimes you wake up and we might have had a hard day before. He would definitely just kind of boost morale, it seems like, every time he walked in the room. Our job as explosive ordnance disposal technicians is to render safe explosive ordnance for civilian and military personnel all around the world.
So ultimately, all of our training and our mobility skills, whether it's diving or jumping or shooting, everything that we do revolves around getting us to an IED or a piece of ordnance that we can take care of.
His knowledge of technology helps by bringing in new perspective to what we already have. These new tools, the robots, the technology that keeps growing within our community that are able to bring new ideas to the table.
Ultimately, getting distance from a piece of ordnance is the number one thing you can do as an EOD technician to make yourself safe. So when you're working out of the back of our vehicles, you can send a robot downrange rather than putting someone in a bomb suit. They've got grippers, so we can tear through things, we can dig through things, we can place charges if we need to. We'll use robots to investigate IEDs or suspicious packages. Over the past 10 years, it's been an exceptionally useful tool that's saved the lives of a lot of EOD technicians. In addition to that, we have another set of robots that we use for underwater missions. What the military provides you the opportunity for as an engineer is really just the opportunity to use your technical and analytical skills in a hands-on way that you wouldn't be able to anywhere else. You can use your knowledge and skills to honestly say that you're making people safe, that you're saving lives. That was a big part of what drew me to the Naval Academy, drew me to engineering, graduate school, dive school, EOD school. It was sort of always finding the challenges that fit with who I am and what I valued and what I was skilled at. The way that you look at the world and the way that you approach problems, I think that you come to it subconsciously. I never thought of myself as an engineer until I realized that I'd been one all along.
probably first realized that I loved music the instant I heard it. I loved to sing, I loved to dance, I loved to play on this piano, and I would just tinker on it. And I've been doing that since I was about 5. Stay on my toes.
We have a relatively musical family. My mother in particular was quite musical and played the piano very well.
There was a lot of interest in music early on, and my grandmother Pat was very encouraging.
We had a piano and we had other instruments available, and she took to those.
It wasn't just instrumental music. She loved to sing in front of us and visitors and kids at school. It's pretty amazing that she had no fear, it seemed to me.
I have no traumatic memories of being afraid to perform, so I guess it came naturally.
I used to stay at her house all the time, and she would be sitting at the piano, playing music. Just always been in awe of her voice.
I started on cello in 7th grade, and then I think I was probably 15 or 16. My grandfather, he said to me, you know, your dad used to play bass.
They brought it out, and she took to it right away.
I just loved trying to figure out music on bass, and I would just sit with the radio next to me and try to develop the ear for the bass parts. I did a lot of one-act theater and a lot of musicals.
The discipline of playing music, I don't think, substituted for the discipline of the academic side.
I think when you're a teenager, you think you're capable of doing anything. Did I think that I could be a musician full-time? I did, but if you tried to ask me what my plan was to reach that goal, I had absolutely no clue. I was just going to go do it. I did think about college, but I knew that I wasn't ready for it yet. And I also knew that what I wanted to do wasn't really embraced by the collegiate community quite yet, which is commercial music.
You know, she suggested she'd like to pursue that as a career, possibly, you know, being more of a practical kind of person. I thought, well, it's not going to be something you're going to be able to make a living at. I mean, you've got to be fantastic and catch some breaks and so on. Otherwise, it's going to be a hobby for you.
I first learned that the military was an option because a recruiter came to a concert and said, hey, you were really playing some good bass guitar up there. And he said, did you know that you can do that in the military?
When she suggested that she'd talked to a recruiter, an Army recruiter, and was interested in that, I thought, well, hey, maybe that's the way you ought to go. So I was actually pretty excited. I didn't know a whole lot about it, so I was interested to hear what her recruiter had to say. And when she talked about the specialty schools and so forth, I thought, well, this really sounds pretty good.
At that particular time, it took me back to my experience with the military. I sympathized with Corinne and thinking that maybe going into the Army would be a way for her to find her way.
I think that's when I started to kind of come around to look at the military, because I was like, well, I could play bass guitar, and there's all these options of places you can go, and you'll get college money for it. So it felt like a good solution on many terms for me.
Please join me in welcoming Frank Campbell and the band. So I'm going to start with a song that I wrote, and I hope you enjoy the concert.
My job right now is a featured performer. I tour the country 300 days a year. My main focus in this job is to change the perspectives that are out there about what the military is, what it can be.
Most people out there, they just see the military and they just think the combat side of it. They don't realize that, pretty much anything you can do on the civilian side, you can do in the military.
I'm very passionate about the Army mission and supporting the Army. Music is the way that I can do that.
She brings to the table that drive of an indie artist and the professionalism of a music industry standard musician, and it's pretty incredible.
It's important to me in this job to connect with students and teachers and parents. After the show is when I get to find out what they really think about it, what impression I made on them, and find out what they thought was valuable about what we did. And sometimes it's just been, like, wow, if the Army will employ you to do this job, then I can't imagine what they might have in store for me.
It's interesting to know that there's different sides of the Army. You just think soldiers and war and fighting, but she's performing music. That's her thing, and I think that's really cool. I didn't know that existed.
It really takes away any sort of preconceived notions that people have about the Army.
Well, I think it's great. It's a natural progression, it seems like to me. I'm proud of her and real happy for her.
The Army has given me so much. They've helped me define my work ethic. My character has grown from a child to an adult in this service. It only makes sense to give it back.
She has found her way, more so than anyone else I know. I am so proud of what she has done while in the service. The service has been a great benefit to her, and I think that she's a benefit to the service.
My experience in my military service has been fulfilling for me because it's contributing myself to something that isn't centered around myself.